Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, the recap of Stage 8 of the Giro d'Italia from Giglianova to Castel Raimondo. The name Castel Raimondo seems familiar to me. Some hilly racing might have happened there in Tirreno Adriatico. Certainly the middle climb of this stage has been in Tirreno Adriatico. The Sasso Tetto, 13 Ks at 7%, enough to put off any even versatile sprinters from surviving this stage, particularly with Mads Pedersen a little bit injured. But we have a flat road for 50 Ks beforehand, an intermediate sprint before the first 8.6K, 4.5% climb, and then another intermediate sprint before that Sasso Tetto starts, then rolling sort of hills, then some medium mountains like 5.5 Ks at 7%, Monte Largo, which is about 50 Ks from the finish before some other up and down hills on some big roads. So too hard for the versatile sprinters, not hard enough near the finish for the GC guys. That spells our first breakaway day, Benji.
Exactly, but I'm going to actually add on to you by giving a little bit of a fun fact. Castel Raimondo was the start of indeed a hilly Tirreno stage, the one with the mythical Nelson Oliveira Mats Schmidt breakaway, my friend. Remember the good old days where Mats Schmidt ended up winning a Tirreno Adriatico stage
that was this with Dowsett or not? Matthias Brandler?
No, the Dowsett one wasn't a Giro, I'm pretty sure, where Dowsett won a Giro stage and then ended up getting a contract as a follow-up of that, if I recall correctly. But anyway, we are going off course, my friend. I gotta bring us back to our lane here because we gotta talk about a Giro d'Italia stage, and the first half of this podcast is most likely gonna be pretty similar to the first half of the stage because we gotta talk about break formation. And the break formation for the stage, you already spoke about the parkour, but I want to highlight something very nicely here, that the start of the parkour, it's not like there's a massive climb at the start of today's stage. So that means that if you've got a massive climb at the start, it's easier for a tiny climby boy to go in the breakaway. If you look at the parkour today, the first spot is, yeah, it's a bit undulating, but mostly flat at the start. So that's where rouleur breakaway riders come in handy. That's why we said yesterday that climbers can get help from tug buddies to go in the breakaway. So a climber getting help from a rouleur teammate to bring them in the breakaway and catapult them upwards. We saw that in action today as well in attempts to go in the breakaway, but we also saw the typical Mess Pedersen. Did he do the same in Paris? I'm pretty sure he did actually in one of the stages where he went into the breakaway, maybe the final stage. I'm not completely sure, where he just goes off the front with two riders in this case, Davide De Preto and also Cataneo, and just
they were already, Catania was already ahead, I think. And yeah, but he was hammering it. He did it smart, though. He waited for one. He's like, one man's going to jump on the flat, and he's going to stretch the peloton.
Yeah.
Wout van Aert. So Wout van Aert jumps, whole peloton in his wheel, full gas. Pedersen's like fifth wheel in the draft. Bang, counters, hard sprint. De Preto's the only one in his wheel. And this creates big panic for all the other teams. Every other team now for the next 45 minutes is completely panicking. And it's funny in the end why they were panicking for nothing. Pedersen is pulling full gas head down, almost to the point where you're looking at him like, there's no way he can keep this up. And also Catania, I felt bad in the end for Catania and De Preto because they're pulling, but Pedersen has a finish line in 20 Ks and he's going to stop. But for the next half an hour, Van Aert spends all his bullets trying to chase. Israel are chasing full gas. Every other team, Groupama jumped 17 times. Lemon jumping, all these teams jumping. And in the end, it's funny, or not funny for them, because at the intermediate sprint, Pedersen goes through it and just stops and tells Catania, oh yeah, I was just going for the intermediate sprint point, see ya. And the peloton is there again.
Catania and De Preto should have noticed, or should have been aware that an intermediate sprint was coming within the next 25 kilometers of the start of the stage, in my personal opinion. But
well,
go ahead.
I think Jayco made a small error in that they were trying to block.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about, this is a great stage to talk about break formation, Benji, and the art of break formation, as well as it's actually the nailed on break days are harder to win from the break because 50 riders, 100 riders want to be in the break. That's today's stage. Literally half the peloton wants to be in the break. All the teams pretty much want to be in the break except Bora. But there's a fallacy in trying to protect a break that will never succeed. So when there's three guys in the break and you're Jayco, trying to block and stop other teams getting in the break actually kills De Preto because another break, you need a counter move to go. XDS Astana, Cofidis, Visma, Israel, Groupama. If they're not in the break, they're not allowed to eat food at dinner tonight. They're not allowed back on the bus. They will not stop jumping until they're in the break. So by blocking them, it just won't work. You have to let them go across.
It's even more simple than that, in the sense that if 9 teams want to be in the breakaway today, and there's a breakaway with 3 teams up the road, then there's still 6 teams that will continuously try to jump towards that breakaway. And in doing so, if you're Jayco and then you decide to try to block 6 teams trying to get in the breakaway, that will never work. At the end of the day, the consequence is that your group up ahead is most likely going to get caught by the self-neutralization of other breakaway teams trying to get in the breakaway in the first place, then Jayco responding to that, which then results in maybe 2 round money riders up the road and maybe UAE to start thinking, okay, maybe we should try and get this rider up the road as well. Then Red Bull Bora kicks into action because they don't want the UAE rider in the breakaway. And it's this very constant cycle in breakaway formation. But how do you control that if you're Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe? Because, to be honest, half of the time, you don't really have to do anything. It's other teams controlling themselves, you know?
Yeah, you have to decide, like, this team's going in, and it's going to make our life easier to let them in. And you just have to pick guys. So, you basically want to use your resources to get the break that you can live with, rather than burning through your resources to get a break that you can't live with, but you don't have a choice anymore. And there were some moments where it continued, Benji, where I was like, if Vine and McNulty move here, there's one Danny Martinez left, pretty much, that I saw when it was starting to go uphill. And like Micah and Arietta you can live with. McNulty and Vine, I wouldn't be so content with them being in the break. And then not even talk about Del Toro or something. So,
but there were a few moments where a near-perfect breakaway was up the road, and there's 2 scenarios that then occurred. One scenario was, for example, where Picnic Postinel missed out. Then they put a rider from their team at the front of the peloton. Gap was 20-ish seconds. I thought, okay, if Picnic Postinel doesn't do anything here, then this break is completely gone. And then Bardet jumped from the peloton. Riders followed, etc. And he was able to bridge. And then that kickstarts everything in the peloton again. But did you also feel like Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe overreacted in places?
I mean, yeah, there was the group with, I'm not sure if you said the group with Piganzoli and Kelderman.
Go ahead.
So there was a good break. It's the right break. It's got Picnic in, Visma in, Polti, I think Bardiani. It was like, it had a sufficient composition of teams.
Yeah.
It had like a critical mass of the teams that wanted to be in. Let's say 8 of the 11. Astana were not in. Astana have to be in. They have to be in the break with Fortunato KOM. And like one Astana guy jumps, the peloton's flat. And I'm like, if you let him across the break, it's done. You can block it. It's over. One Astana, I don't even know who it is. Who cares? He jumps, fucking Bora snap close him. And they're like sprinting and stretching the peloton again. I'm like, okay, it's going to go again. And then Jay Vine's going to start sniffing around. McNulty's going to they create a rod for their own back. In the end, a break did form. Took like Took 2 hours just about. It was great racing. It was you kept thinking this is the break, and it just it was great. I mean, the peloton's wanting a P break, we're wanting a P break. It never stopped. And yeah, a big break goes with the right teams. Cofidis with Lastra Monique, Decathlon with Prodom Vendrame, EF with Honoré Steinhauser, Rochas, but he spent a lot. Frigo, who won in Tour of the Alps, Formulo for Movistar Hausen, Bowman Plapp. Both good in Giro breaks before Bardet bridged across on a climb afterwards. After Picnic tried to keep the gap close, he missed it initially. Kelderman and Van Baarle for Visma. Arietta does the same as he slips in late. And Ulisi and Fortunato. The closest on GC was Fortunato on 2:57. Second closest was Hausen on 4:07. No, sorry, I lied. Ulisi's second closest on 4:01.
So both Astana riders are the closest in the breakaway. A good thing to remember, because the gap towards the breakaway started going up gradually. Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe had their rouleur space at first, and then they went on to some other riders, but it mostly stayed with the early domestiques of Red Bull Bora had felt in the early phase of that breakaway existing, to the point that that breakaway easily got up to 3 minutes 30 at first. 4 minutes is first, and then it gradually started growing from there up to staying constant at about 5 minutes 50, 6 minutes roughly, where it played a bit in the final. But we got to talk about the breakaway here, because at that point we know the breakaway is going to win the stage. We know that Red Bull Bora, we assumed yesterday that Red Bull Bora will want this stage to have the Maglia Rosa go away to a breakaway rider, in doing so taking away two things: the necessity for Red Bull Bora to fully control everything, because if another team takes over the Maglia Rosa, then maybe they might help in certain places to try and keep the race organized a little bit. That's a possibility. But an other certainty is that whoever's in the Maglia Rosa has extra doping tests, has extra press conferences they have to do, has extra stuff to do, that if you're a GC rider, you'd rather be recovering for the next stage during that period. So that's something to think about as well. So I assumed yesterday Roglic was going to want to lose the Maglia Rosa today. And that was seemingly the case, because the gap started exceeding past the point where Fortunato and Ulisi were virtually in the Maglia Rosa, together with Hausen on the podium virtually as well. But let's talk about the breakaway here, because Sassotetto climb came just after the breakaway formed. And there were a bit of splits on the Sassotetto climb, but I felt like that split then came together again. But it wasn't until the top of the Sassotetto climb where we really saw a proper split in the group, no?
Well, yeah, this breakaway, as soon as it got the green light from the peloton, it started, the Fuga de la Fuga began almost immediately. When they even had 90 seconds, everyone's like, I don't feel like pulling. And that's what began. And on Sassotetto, we saw like splits. All three Cofidis riders were on the wrong split. They had to come back. We then saw the best climbers coming to the front. Frigo was caught behind and struggling a little bit. But the split in the front, it was initially Kelderman, Ulisi, Vendrame, Arietta, Plapp, Bardet, Steinhauser. And I got to say, Ulisi didn't give a fuck about Fortunato's pink jersey. He was riding like Ulisi, which fair enough when you see the end result, sort of. Maybe they could have won, but they go clear. Eventually, they don't want to pull either. Van Baarle gets across. It all stops. And yeah, the KOM sprint, these KOM sprints or intermediate sprints, they're the best place to get a free gap. Bardet jumps, and I'm like, Roman Bardet, that's a bit rude. Let Lorenzo take the KOM points. Roman Bardet was trying to use that as a springboard to go on the descent, and then they both jump, both on the wheel, big gap, no one's responding. And this is like 200 meters uphill, so there's actually a big gap being created. I was like, no one wants to go with those two? I'm like, they will continue for sure. You don't give back a 12-second gap for free.
And interestingly, that group that went ahead, first of all, I want to add that Fortunato ended up taking points on top of Sassotetto. So I think he gained like 40 extra points in the KOM jersey today. So looking pretty good in Azura, I would say, for the next week at least. And we'll see in week 3 if that changes. But the group that was created with Bardet, Fortunato first, and a couple riders bridging to that, is it me or is it the opposite of a usual Fuga de la Fuga? Usually the Fuga de la Fuga is an idea where, okay, we're on the flat segment before a climb. I'm a ruler. I don't believe I can survive on the climb. I'll try and get ahead so that on the climb I might be able to survive ahead of the people that I'm currently with. That's the original idea of a Fuga de la Fuga. But in this case, it was more the climbers that were getting ahead in front of riders that you'd assume were the Fuga de la Fuga riders in the first place, right? Did that make any sense?
Yeah, the best climbers were doing the Fuga de la Fuga before the valley. And it's sort of, you expect the reverse. And we know this is going to be carnage. Someone's going to miss it. It's going to take one guy who's smart, bang, goes at the right time. No way this is going to be a group sprint of 3 guys or even 4 guys. There's just too many non-sprinty, powerful, 70-kilo break guys who want to finish solo. There's too many smart guys who don't want to do their fair share. And it's going to be tactical. And that's exactly what it was. Kelderman slips away. Problem for him was he goes with Diego Ulisi, and Ulisi's with him. It's a 5K, 7% climb. Kelderman's doing the majority of the work, and we see Steinhauser suffering. Plapp's on his wheel. I'm like, oh, Plapp's looking not good. Plapp uses up Steinhauser completely. Arietta's in the middle. He gets across. Van Baarle and Fortunato are on the wrong side of the split. Plapp goes, shoots across to Kelderman, and the others. Sits on them for a bit. Kelderman pulling. Plapp subtly goes to the other side of the road, in the saddle, seated, accelerates. Kelderman doesn't respond. Stage over.
Well, I think we need to highlight it a little bit more of how it was step by step. Because this entire climb, the Monte Lago climb today of Luke Plapp, was the perfect example of, as a rider, eating someone else's plate first before starting to eat your own plate. And that's just an expression to say that he's using up everybody else before he makes his own move. Because if you look at exactly that climb, and from the exact start, he's dropping as one of the earlier riders of that front group. And he's doing so in the wheel of Vendrame, who then starts to suffer in the wheel of Bardet. So he uses up Vendrame. Then he gets to the wheel of Bardet, he bridges straight past. And then after that, he does the exact same thing to Steinhauser, who ends up dropping off the wheel of Arrieta. So he then uses up the plate of Steinhauser, staying in the wheel uncomfortably long. If you're Steinhauser, you're like, this dude in the back of my wheel, I know he's going to drop me soon. And it happens. It literally happens. He then bridges to Arrieta, who's making it to the front. Like, it's so cold-blooded the way Luke Plapp did this entire climb. There's a lot of riders that on this climb would panic. Okay, this rider has 20 seconds on me. There were moments where the ticker at the top said 20 seconds from Plapp to the front of the race, where he was in a situation where you'd think, okay, can he still put this ride? But he was riding his own interval time trial? Is that a good description of what he was doing?
Yeah, he's just setting his own pace. These climbs, these medium mountain or hills, 5 to 6 to 7% on the big roads is good for Plapp, who he wants to turn this into a longer effort or a time trial, get aerodynamic and let the others work. And you know, when you attack Kelderman, it's Kelderman, Ulissi, Arrieta.
Yep.
It's perfect. Because Ulissi and Arrieta are going to rat Kelderman, and Kelderman's going to do too much, but he's already done way too much. Once you have 20 seconds, it's done. Or maybe even, to be honest, once you have 5 seconds, it's done.
True. And I just never really believed in Kelderman winning that stage. Like,
it's impossible.
We can joke about it all we want, but in reality, there's a reason that Kelderman has been in the top 10 in all the spaces of the top 10 during his entire career so many times, but hasn't won a road race. There's a reason for that. And he just spends too much energy today in the run-up, but also, at the end of the day, Ulissi would beat him 1v1 in a sprint on paper. So he'd have to be the best in the breakaway in terms of strength to be able to win this race. And I don't even believe he was that today. So,
or maybe he was, but the problem is he showed everybody.
I don't think he was anyway.
I mean, yeah, maybe uphill, certainly not on the flat. Plapp was on an absolute truck on the flat. But yeah, forming the break, and then on Sassateto, if you show everybody, I'm in really good shape, they're gonna be very careful of you. They're gonna attack you. And Plapp played it smart. Plapp, well, we were thinking, is he struggling a bit? You know, and then bang, one move, gone. So he, unfortunately for Plapp last year, he was second or third on a Giro stage because he was accompanied by Peleo Sanchez and Julian Alaphilippe. He couldn't get rid of them. But today, he goes solo, 45k solo, beats Kelderman, who actually, he doesn't beat Ulissi. He rolls over him for second because Ulissi began pacing all out once the stage win was gone, and they brought the gap down from 120 to 38 seconds because the Maglia Rosa was up for grabs. So Ulissi finishes third on 38 seconds, also with 4 bonus seconds. Arrieta fourth on 122. Ulissi has 6 bonus seconds because of the Red Bull sprint. Arrieta on 122, Prodon 135, Vendrame 6th, Fortunato on 148. Ulissi ahead of him provisionally on GC then by about 12 seconds. Steinhauser 8th, Bardet 9th, Martinelli 10th. But where's the peloton? Bahrain paced a bit.
There was a bit of action. There was a bit of action.
Oh, yeah?
And on the last climb, we saw an attack. It was on the Gagliole climb, basically the steep 800-meter climb towards the end, where Tom Pidcock makes a move in the peloton. Ayuso jumps on his wheel. Ayuso counters softly, but then it kind of just blocks up on the road again. And it never really gets a major difference there. But in doing so, the gap towards Ulissi virtually on the road becomes very, very close. But I'm talking seconds to whether Ulissi would take the Maglia Rosa or not at that point. but it's after the climb that we see the peloton group when Ulissi has already finished, where we're counting down. Can Ulissi take the pink jersey here? And we see that peloton group, and I see a calm tempo by UAE at the front of that peloton. And I'm thinking, I'm sorry, but maybe this is an evil Benji thinking. I think UAE should have hard paced from the moment they knew on top of that last climb that the gap was relatively the same as the virtual gap that Ulissi needs, because if they keep pacing from that top to the finish line, Roglic is still in the Maglia Rosa tonight, which means he has to do all the crap I said at the start that Roglic wants to avoid doing.
I know, it would have been funny, but in the end, actually, Ulissi does get that pink jersey by a meager 12 seconds ahead of his own teammate, Lorenzo Fortunato. Roglic goes down to third on 17 seconds. Ayuso did jump Roglic and sprinted all out for the line to take a solitary second. He moves a second closer to Roglic. He's now 3 seconds behind him. Del Toro's on 26 seconds. Basically, everyone moves down a spot or two because of Ulissi and Fortunato. I don't know why some move down one and others move up. I don't really understand. Did someone fall out of GC today? Vacek.
Oh.
He got dropped. He got dropped.
I didn't know.
He lost time to the GC group. He lost 40 seconds. What the fuck?
That's odd.
It's a big
also,
group.
40 seconds is an odd difference to have because...
He's not in the gruppetto.
Because if you lose time, you'd either think, okay, he's going to lose proper time so he can go in breakaways, because Vacek can win a stage like this on stage 11. I think it's something similar, but the middle climb is a bit harder in that stage. But losing 40 seconds is like... That sounds like it wasn't on purpose.
It's weird. Like, did he have a mech or something? Because all due respect to the people making that peloton, he's been dropping half of them the last week. So maybe just ran out of steam. We didn't see him trying to get in the break today either.
No.
So yeah, he's
maybe for tomorrow. Maybe he's ready to cook.
Maybe he wants to lose a bit of time, but yeah, he's now on 138 on GC, 134. Sorry for Siena tomorrow. And tomorrow's stage is a big one. It's the gravel stage many have been fearing. I read in Benson this morning, Ineos with Dempster are going to approach it aggressively. I think that's the right way to do it for them. They got the best team for it. They got the best GC rider for it, probably, apart from Del Toro. And the stage is 180 k's from Gubbio to Siena. There is a 4.2k, 7.6% climb after an hour of racing. There's another intermediate sprint at the base of that. I'll be interested to see whether Pedersen goes on a suicide mission for those sprint points again, or actually fights for the stage, which should suit him.
Yeah. I would think the latter, but specifically for the stage, the last half is the most important because that's where the gravel sectors are, and there's 5 in total. We've started with the Pieve Assalti sector, which is a pretty long one, actually, like roughly 8 kilometers, but that's like the incoming sector. I feel like the third sector is maybe the one where it starts to get really tricky. That's San Martino in Grania, 1 kilometer at 7% at the end of it, but in total it's like a 12-kilometer sector roughly. If you remember Strade Bianche, the footage, the broadcast always starts with Monte Sante Marie sector. That one's not in here, but the sector before that is this one, the San Martino in Grania. So this is one straight out of Strade Bianche. But after that one, there's about a 15-kilometer regular road surface before we get to Monte Aperti and Colli Pinzutto, a combo of 2. Colli Pinzutto is the gravel climb on which Pidcock was dropped by Pogacar in the last Strade Bianche. So it's a pretty hard sector, I would say. That being said, it's weird to say I don't wish for carnage, but I wish for carnage.
I mean, well, I do wish for it, yeah. It'd make the race be the most exciting part of the week so far. I mean, you look at this Ineos team, Rivera, Tarling, Turner, Hamilton, Hajduk, Arensman. I think Arensman should actually be decent at this. It's a pretty good team for this. Bernal, of course, has come third in Strade Bianche. He was good in Classica Cayenne until he crashed. Moscon has actually been in good shape. I think Pellizzari, Moscon, Tratnik, Aliotti, Roglic is not bad. And I think if Roglic survives the long gravel zone, then the later hill zone, he should be cooking, right? Like at the end of the day,
you'd say
Pinzutto is a steep as fuck punch. Okay, it's on gravel, but he should be good at that.
But even on top of that, the finish itself is on Piazza del Campo in Siena. So it is literally the last kilometer of Strade Bianche. So that also fits the Roglic as well. But I'm more worried about the positioning fight towards gravel sectors, whether he can keep himself safe there. That's more where I'm worried than the actual gravel sectors itself for Roglic. Because what was it again? Plateau de Glières on top in the Tour de France stage 2020, I think. Yeah. There he was on the gravel sector, looked pretty good. So I'm not as worried for Roglic as I am for the run in towards gravel sectors where it might get really tricky positioning wise. But I'm more thinking about tomorrow in the way of, if you're a rider like Pidcock, you're probably too close in GC to go in the breakaway. On the other hand, how many teams? There's a lot. We saw it today. There's so many teams in this role of the Giro d'Italia right now that have riders that want to go in the breakaway. And a stage like tomorrow will also be that one. So is there a chance that we see both a breakaway fight for the stage and a peloton fight behind? Or do we expect the team to be willing to control it in the peloton? Because I'm not sure who that will be.
Well, Astana got the jersey, so...
Fair.
Unfortunately for Ulissi, the jersey is a blessing and a curse because he could have gone on the break again and tried to fight for this win. On this sort of stage. If I'm Ulissi, I'd jump in the break anyway.
Yeah.
I would. If he takes another 3 minutes, what's the problem? I mean, it's not a problem if you're Bora or UAE. I think Astana will be going break again, and there is this hard climb, as I said, close to the start of the... Well, not close to the start of the race, but if the break hasn't formed on the flat in the first 50Ks or 45Ks, then yeah, there's that 4.5K, 7.6% climb. That's hard with some 10% sections in there. So I think if you're Pidcock, I would chill, and then if the break hasn't gone, and then there's moves going on that climb, I'm trying to slip in. Same as what Piganzoli did today. Same as what any real guy who's not in the top 10 should be doing, to be honest.
I'm going for the man we spoke about already. He's still relatively close in GC, actually, on a minute 34, but they might overlook him, Matthias Vacek.
I think a break goes. I think it gets controlled because Ineos and the other teams are fighting for position so much, so it doesn't get that free 5 minutes that it got today, unless it really goes early. But I'm going with Del Toro from the peloton.
That's nice. From the peloton, I've got a Pidcock feeling. Because, this is hands down Pidcock parkour. From breakaway, I see Wout van Aert trying to be in the breakaway, but I haven't really seen the form necessary to beat some of these other breakaway riders. Because I'd expect Vacek to be stronger, but then Vacek needs to make it in the breakaway in the first place. And I'm looking down GC between 1.5 minutes to 5 minutes behind in GC, and I don't really see the riders that I'd be expecting to really perform on this parkour in the first place. So, that's why maybe Vacek can still get in the breakaway regardless of the situation. I hope we see an all-out GC fight, regardless of what happens in the breakaway. Because at the end of the day, seeing a gravel stage in the Giro, honestly, I'm gonna bring you back. Well, I can't bring you back because you weren't watching cycling back in the day during that era, but there was this stage. I think it was Vinokurov riding for Astana back in the day and Cadel Evans riding for...
I did a video on this.
Did you? The Montalcino stage?
Yeah, I've done a whole analysis video of that stage. But that was raining.
That was crazy, man.
That was also 230 Ks.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, real cycling.
Why is this stage not 230 kilometers? Come on.
The riders would boycott it. What happened last gravel? What happened in the 2021 Giro? Which was the gravel stage?
Jana blew it up, remember? And then Remco and Almeida had a fight afterwards, or at least their fans had a fight afterwards, because Almeida had to wait for Remco on the gravel, if I recall.
Yeah, Dan Martin lost 10 spots. Evenepoel lost 5 spots. Ciccone had a shocker, lost 4 spots.
Dan Martin. Man was like, I'm riding for GC, and then saw the gravel and was like, I'm not riding for GC.
Yeah. That day, Bernal did take a little bit of time. He did attack. He gapped the other GC guys like Vlasov, Caruso, and Yates took 30 seconds on them. It was different gravel, though, longer climbs. These are more punchy. I think Bernal goes crazy tomorrow. I think Del Toro there's a group of 5 created by Bernal. with Ayuso, Roglic, Del Toro, and I think Del Toro counters out of it, and I think he's very hard to bring back.
I think the Yates's get this toward in GC.
It's not the perfect for them. So there's gravel descents in this stage. It's going to be one riders aren't looking forward to. And so you picked Vacek. I picked... Who did I pick? Del Toro.
Torito is who you picked, indeed.
Del Toro, yep. And if not, Davide Di Pretto from the breakaway. Jayco 1-2.
Interesting.
Anything else from this stage, Benji? Any GC, like anything change your mind? Is Ayuso nervous? Or was he just trying to make Roglic nervous?
But to be honest, it's not necessary what Ayuso did at the finish. Like sprinting all out for a 1 second difference. At the end of the day, I don't believe this Giro will be decided by 1 second. Yes, you could be like, okay, Ayuso's trying to like, rah, Roglic, be scared of me. That kind of vibe. I don't feel it. Roglic should neither. At the end of the day, today's outcome is good for Roglic. Losing the Maglia Rosa before a stage like the Strade one potentially helps if Astana decides to control it necessarily. Like that's something that would help Roglic. So today didn't necessarily change me or my opinion on this Giro at all. I still think Roglic is the favorite regardless of what happened yesterday. I think Ayuso is the closest competitor next to that. But I think at least there's one curiosity. I'm very curious to see what Del Toro can do in week 3. Because that's where I'm uncertain about him. Tomorrow, I expect to find Del Toro. But on week 3 on the multi-mountain stages, that's where I'm not sure about. And a couple of other riders that I do expect to be good in week 3. Like, I'd expect Tiberi to be good in week 3, for example. I expect the climbers in the top 15 to really come out. I expect Damiano Caruso to safely put his top 10 in the pocket of Patrick by the end of the Giro, because he's actually doing good. I've completely swiped from one side to the other on this, because my man's looking on fire.
Well, yeah, because how many riders try for top 10 in the Giro normally? 15?
Yeah.
How many of them are professional GC riders? 8?
7.
7 or 8, and he's one of them. So, yeah.
Lastly, I do want to add that I'm super happy to see Plappy win. It's the kind of rider where he's gone through some shit with his wrist at the start of the year, etc. Probably has quite a bit of pressure in the likes of the Tour Down Under from the team of Jayco in that race, and then to come out here and win a Giro stage after coming close to it last year after crashing twice already in this Giro. Really nice to see, and also it's one of the nicest people I've met in the sport of cycling. So at the end of the day, one of the good guys to me. So I'm happy to see him win.
Yeah, he wins his first World Tour race, and it's in a Grand Tour. You know, Hellas was the first race he won outside of Australian National Championships.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah, but one brings 2, and he got that on the board, and it's a smaller race, but he won. And then here, he looks even like he's holding the bars funny. I don't know which wrist he hurt, but even the way he's holding the bars, yeah, his left wrist, it's not like a normal way he's holding the bars, and yet he's able to. The day everyone wanted to be in the break, and indeed there was a fight for 3 hours just about to get in that break. It's nearly 4,000 meters vertical gain. He gets in that break and he wins against some good riders. So very, very impressive. It's also what he can do. You know, like the GC dream at Grand Tours right now is not realistic for him, and he's saved energy throughout this Giro. He's earmarked this stage and he made it happen. So yeah. Congrats to him. Good win for Jayco as well.
Yes.
They needed it. So I think they're always good. They always bring like really professional stage hunters to the Grand Tours. Like Di Pretto, Bowman's won twice in the Giro. Now Plapp wins. I think and now they got Zana for the high mountains. So yeah, probably not I think they'll win another.
I think so too. Genuinely.
Okay.
Maybe
tomorrow with Di Pretto, who I think from the break could be good. I hope you enjoyed the recap as always, and we'll see you with that Siena Strada Bianca Light stage tomorrow. Ciao, ciao.